Podcast with Nick Cattles.
He is Greg. I am Nick Cattles, and we are part of the CLNS Media Network. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All right, Greg, we got a lot of news to hit, my man, today. And, of course, we start with Milton Williams, who was put on IR over the weekend, which means I just want to make this clear for everybody. Milton Williams will miss 4 games. It's not 4 weeks. It's a minimum of 4 games. So he is absolutely out against Cincy, the New York Giants, the Buffalo Bills, and the Baltimore Ravens. It's as simple as that. He is out for at least 4 games. Greg, I ask you, how significant of a loss is this for the Patriots defense?
I mean, it's big in the short term. I mean, it's good that he's going to be back and hopefully healthy for the end of the season, the playoffs. It could be a lot worse. There are a lot of other teams in a lot worse situations. But yeah, obviously Milton is a big part of this defense. He's played terrific this year. He's really the one guy that you can count on every single week in that defense to produce impactful plays. He doesn't make a lot of mental errors or anything like that. You don't see him blowing gaps very often. He's where he's supposed to be. A big injury. I will say that I think, defensive tackle is one of the few spots on this team where you can say, all right, they can get by. Sort of like, Christian Gonzalez missed, 4 games to start the season. And, especially with the way the Patriots play with a lot of zone and, how you can sort of hide people at cornerback. You can get by with an injury probably at cornerback. I think you can get by with an injury in the short term as long as you're getting Milton Williams back at some point at defensive tackle, because they do have some people who have played good football for this team, starting with Kyrus Tonga. I think that Corey Durden, who we talked about, I think a couple weeks ago, I think he's played good football for this team. Joshua Farmer, who missed the last game, has also done well. He's been sort of like on the upswing this year. And then on the practice squad, you have a guy like Jeremiah Farms, who loved Jeremiah, was a Bullfrog. He's played a lot of really good football for this team in stretches, especially last year when he was on the roster. So, not ideal. And of course, you still have, Christian Barmore out there who had a very nice bounce back game with, I don't know if that was about Milton Williams not being there and him feeling the need to step up. But, I thought Christian played really well in this game, first time in a while that he did. So, yeah, look, he's one of your best players. So you're going to feel that. But I think that it's short term. I am surprised that they put him on IR because it does mean 5 weeks. It's not 4 games, like you said. With the bye in between, it's 5 weeks. And given how he came back in the game, and then also Mike Vrabel's response when I asked him about it after the game, I thought it was going to be probably through the bye week type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
But for them to shelve him for 5 weeks, the MRI or what have you must not have been great.
Yeah, look, Milton Williams, I think, is the second best player on this team this year behind Drake Maye. He's been just consistently a stud. But if you are going to suffer an injury of this impact, really the interior defensive line might be the best spot because, as Greg mentioned, they actually have legitimate depth there. I mean, you look at if Christian Gonzalez went down or, somebody at another position that they're much thinner at, and you see it a little bit at tight end with Austin Hooper and the concussion. Yes, you still have Hunter Henry, but now you're kind of searching. And I know we'll talk about CJ Dupree in a minute. But, if you're going to take a hit, the interior defensive line is maybe where you want to take a hit. And it's interesting, like you said, that they did put him on IR. He had the mini bye week. You have the bye week coming up in a couple of weeks. But it must have been, pretty bad. The imaging must have been pretty bad, which speaks to Milton Williams and his desire to go out there and play through that. He wanted to go back out there. It obviously must have not been feeling great. Is this just, you slide Christian Barmore into his spot for more snaps, Greg, at the 3 technique? Is that what you would anticipate?
Yeah, and I think that Kyrus Tonga gets the biggest boost in terms of playing time. I think actually scratch that. I would say I think this coaching staff and Mike Vrabel they have their plans in mind. And in terms of snap counts and getting these guys through the year, they are and we'll get into the whole, because there's an offshoot with this about Braden Swinson and CJ Dupree, who they just signed to the 53. But this outfit has their eyes on the horizon, and they have their plans, and they're not deviating from their plans. So if their plan, which they've been taking care of Christian Barmore all year, whether it's training camp, day off on Wednesday, limiting his snap counts, like he might go up a little bit depending on the game situation, but I don't think it's going to be a whole lot different. I think I would look for an uptick from Tonga, Durden, and Farmer in sort of that order. And I don't think they want to ask too much of Christian. I think they have the long-term in mind in a lot of different respects.
All right, so Braden Swinson and CJ Dupree, you mentioned they were both signed to the 53-man roster since Saturday. What have you heard as far as those decisions go?
So those decisions were prompted by the interest of other teams to sign those players to their 53-man roster. Because when I looked at it, I saw the press release come out about Milton Williams, and they're putting Milton Williams on IR, and they're signing Braden Swinson to the 53-man roster. It made absolutely no sense. And we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it, but the number one thing is Braden Swinson is an outside linebacker. And he's sort of I just want to look up his height and weight real quick. So he's 6'3.5", like 255. He's, good height. Not the biggest guy in the world. But that now makes it, they now have 6 outside linebackers on the roster. They have the starters Chason and Landry. You have Jennings and Ponder. You have Caleb Murphy, who they claimed on waivers from the Chargers, and now Swinson. That's a lot of people. I mean, Caleb, he hasn't even sniffed the field yet, from what I can tell. Maybe in special teams. Anthony Jennings doesn't play that much. Elijah Ponder, who's actually played really well the last 2 weeks, has started to see an uptick. Yes, and you can also say Chason and Landry have started to look tired. I think they have. I think the mini bye week and then the bye week, hopefully that helps them. I don't think their edge play has been great of late, but it really made no sense. They have way too many numbers at outside linebackers for guys that don't play, especially for a guy. Swinson just got promoted from the practice squad for a game. He got elevated. They had 2 more that they could do with him if they wanted him that game week. So that didn't make any sense. And then CJ Dupree, the Patriots had 1 tight end for this past game. They did not elevate Dupree from the practice squad. He had all 3 practice squad elevations. If for some reason you thought Austin Hooper was going to be on an extended period of time, which I have heard, I don't think that's the case. I expect him to be back at some point this week. As soon as he goes through the protocol, you could just elevate CJ Dupree. And that they signed both of those guys, it smelled like other interest from other teams. And that is in fact correct from people that I've talked to in the organization. And so, very interesting decisions to do that. And I think it speaks to, at least one other big thing.
It also speaks to, the draft class that you had, the undrafted free agency that you had, this idea that other teams want to poach your players. I mean, that's always good news. That's the silver lining, that somebody looks at Braden Swinson and says he might be able to help us out. Team looks at CJ Dupree and says he might be able to help us out. I don't think we would have seen that the past couple of years, late into the season, where it's teams are looking around going, hey, that guy in that practice squad might be pretty good for us. the 6 edge outside linebackers part of this is really interesting, Greg. And I do think, it'll be compelling to watch whether or not this impacts K'Lavon Chaisson and Harold Landry's snaps. Not that Braden Swinson is going to get those snaps, but, the other guys getting those snaps. Does Elijah Ponder continue to see that uptick? Does Caleb Murphy get a shot now? And kind of Braden Swinson, fills in for him on special teams or whenever he's out there. Because I do think, K'Lavon Chaisson, you asked a lot of him early on, and he was, just an impactful player for a lot of weeks. And he has slowed down a little bit recently. And as you mentioned, Harold Landry, I don't think he's been the same guy since the Tennessee game when he got rolled up on. Just has not looked the same. So it could be he has less in the tank because he's obviously 28, 29. It could be getting rolled up on against Tennessee. It could be a combination of those two factors, and you need more from the edge. And I think, when you look at Braden Swinson, he's more of a Josh Uche type right now. So if you're looking for somebody to, go out there and play 25 snaps, that's not going to happen. If they do throw him out there, it's because they want some pass rush juice, and maybe he takes a couple snaps away from Anthony Jennings. But I don't think this is, Braden Swinson's now going to, play 25 snaps on Sunday against the Bengals. I don't think that's what we're looking at.
Let's stay on this for a second, because I think there's an interesting offshoot about this. Well, first of all, let's revisit these two players, briefly, because, I've already heard this, from a couple of my members. So Braden Swinson was a 5th-round draft pick of the Patriots. CJ Dupree was given, if not the largest signing bonus, undrafted free agent signing bonus that they gave out. It was up there. Both of those things don't matter when they got released in the final cutdown. Braden Swinson is no longer a 5th-round pick. He's just, getting paid, minimum. He whatever signing bonus he had, he pocketed. Same thing with CJ Dupree. He got the signing bonus, but it's not like the Patriots are saying like we need to recoup this value or anything like that. It was already gone as soon as they released him at the final cutdown. Those guys were not claimed by any other team. They've been on the practice squad all year. You do get in a situation this time of year. The way that it goes, to explain to people, so if you sign a player from another practice squad, like the Patriots did, they did it with the Saunders guy from Miami that they just released as part of the Dupree thing. He has to be on the 53-man roster for a minimum of 3 weeks. And then you can do whatever you want with him. So what happens this time of year now with, the weeks in the season are dwindling for some teams. What you will get, especially teams that are out of it, they will go around and say, well, we like these guys in the pre-draft process. Why don't we basically bring them in for a 3-week tryout to see whether we want them to be part of the future? And then when they sign the futures contract and all that stuff. So this happens this time of year. We haven't seen these guys since the summer. Both of those guys had, how do I say this? Not good summers. Braden Swinson did nothing. I think he had one preseason game where he flashed a little bit, but he didn't show any sort of he didn't show anything, quite frankly. CJ Dupree was the same thing. He was supposed to be like a blocking, like two-way tight end out of Alabama. He didn't show out in any sort of way at all. And I know both players were pretty big disappointments to the Patriots, and that led to their release. I will say, of course, we don't know. They've been in the program now behind the scenes for 3 months. Maybe they caught the world on fire. Maybe it started to click for them. The light bulb went off, and they're a lot better player. I will tell you, in my conversations with people, I have not gotten that indication. Like, I thought, all right, well, maybe Braden Swinson can bring a little bit of speed to the pass rush. I would say, don't hold your breath. So the offshoot to this, the interesting offshoot, and this almost goes with the trade deadline, is the Patriots, instead of potentially losing these guys to other teams, guys, from my conversations, I would say they're lukewarm about. They could develop in the future, but they don't know. But instead of just letting those guys go and keeping the best quote unquote 53 that you can have, the Patriots said, well, we like these guys in the pre-draft process. We want to give them another shot. So they might not be ready for the NFL right now, but we're going to give them a 53-man roster spot on a 9-2 team that's going for the AFC number 1 seed. To me, it goes hand in hand with their decisions at the trade deadline, where they're not going to give up anything in the future because they are focused. Yeah, what they're doing is great now in the present, but they have bigger things to do to get this program on target. And if they have to take a little bit of a hit now, they're okay with that.
I was thinking about this a little bit earlier. I'm glad that you just mentioned what you did, because if you really look at the big picture of this, and I know we go week to week, and look, we're all, I think, excited to be, following a team, writing about a team, talking about a team that is 9-2, and they have a legitimate shot of being a 1 seed. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But you've got to look at the big picture if you're Mike Vrabel and the rest of that front office. And it's what we talked about, the trade deadline. I mean, you can look at this team and say, yeah, they're exceeding expectations at pretty much every single level. However, they're going to need a cornerback too soon. Yep. They're going to need, 2 tight ends because both guys are over 30. They're going to need a right tackle because Morgan Moses is 34 years old. They're going to need edge help because Harold Landry does look like he's slowing down, and Caleb Chason is on a 1-year deal. I mean, there are some still big holes to fill long-term for this football team and this roster. So, enjoy it right now and enjoy 2025 for what it has been and hopefully what it will be. But understand, these guys are looking at the short term and the long term, and they're saying, there's a lot of premium positions that we're going to have to fill. And it's not 3 years down the road. I mean, it's right around the corner. As Greg and I mentioned at the trade deadline, there were a lot of Band-Aids, and they did a great job of finding those Band-Aids, and those Band-Aids have done terrific work in making sure that the bleeding has stopped for now. But you've got to make sure that you put some stitches on there and you take care of those wounds that are going to open up over the next 365 days. Morgan Moses ain't going to be out there at 37 years old. Robert Spillane is, nearing 30. Carlton Davis is nearing 30. So you've got to address those needs. And, 2025 is great, but what's 26 and 27 look like? That's what those guys are thinking about too. They're thinking about this year, and they're thinking about 26, 27, and 28. Running back.
I just want to say one thing.
Sure.
Actually, 2 things. Number one, I need to correct. I thought that Braden Swinson was elevated recently. I can't find any mention of that in my email. So both players had all 3 elevations at their disposal. And I will say, related to what you just said, and it's absolutely correct, and something you and I have been talking about a lot, with the trade deadline. And I assume I mentioned this before in the discussion about that, but the Patriots learned a lot, or at least it informed their thinking when the Commanders came here for the joint practice this summer. And basically, as we've talked about, the Patriots basically copied the Commanders offseason from last year when they went to the NFC Championship game. And, the Commanders did well. They sort of doubled down on everything. They had the Lattimore trade at the trade deadline. They went in for Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel in the offseason, trading picks for all of those guys. And what they were left with was by far the oldest roster in the league. And I can tell you, when the Commanders were here, and I had the same thought watching from my perch up there, I was not impressed with the Commanders at all, especially their defense. This is a team that had to go get Dietrich Wise to be one of their edge guys. And, of course, at his age, he got hurt. He's out for the year. But the Patriots left the joint practice with the Commanders saying, we don't want to be the Washington Commanders. They're not doing it right. What they did was really good, but then they got ahead of themselves. They deluded themselves into thinking that they were better than they were. We're not going to do that. And so that's what the Patriots are doing, whether that's right or wrong.
All right. We've got more here. I want to talk about Ramondre Stevenson, Kayshon Boutte, their status. But first, Greg wants to tell you about Prize Picks.
You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. I got very close for the Patriots-Jets game. I was so close. I was one away from hitting it, but it just didn't come through. But I had fun watching my picks get closer and closer. I love the little progress bar that they have on the app that you can see, like, has that player reached that? How close are they? So you can root during the game. It's a lot of fun. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less in at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the lineup. You know what that means? Want to pick more on Drake Maye's pass yards, rush yards, touchdowns, pulling plays out of his rear end, throwing off 1 foot, throwing dimes down the field. Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
And for those listening, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. Those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. And check out Greg and Mike Giardi over at BSJ. $50 for the year, a tremendous deal as they crush the Patriots coverage. All right. Ramondre Stevenson, Kayshon Boutte, expected to practice this week. Greg, how badly do you think those 2 guys are needed right now for the offense?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, it's all relative. They are, who are they playing? The banged up Bengals this week without the spitter, and then the Giants after that. So it's all relative. Yeah, they need them back, overall. I mean, Travion Henderson has done fine at, running back. We've talked about him a lot. I have not changed where I am sort of on Travion Henderson. If Ramondre can come back and be Ramondre and not fumble the ball, I think he's really sort of needed in this lineup. And I think that one of the things, and I'm sure we'll talk about this as they get closer, probably maybe during the bye week, we'll talk more about it. But who knows? Maybe we'll be bored to death by these next couple of games. So we start talking about it, but things that you want to see the Patriots get better at, things that you're worried about sort of towards the end of the season going into the playoffs. And I think that, they got one of the things that they need to do is they need to get the running game going. It's been better. It's still not good. And I think Ramondre Stevenson, I want to see a thunder and lightning type of backfield with those 2 guys. And so would love to see him. Kayshon Boutte, yeah, I think the happiest guy in the world would be Drake Maye, when he comes back, because we have seen the trust that those 2 have in each other. It's really, on another level than some of the guys on this roster, namely Kyle Williams, who I can't believe he played 45 snaps in the last game. Didn't seem like that much, but he did indeed, and he was 0 for 3 on targets and had, one really horrendous route where there was nobody over the top of him, and it was man coverage or, it was single high safety, and in the McDaniels offense, that's a go. You're going up the sideline, and Kyle Williams broke it off, which you would do if it was zone or two safeties, and he broke it off. Drake Maye threw deep. That is not complicated. It's not the scheme being too complicated. That's one of the simplest reads for a receiver in this offense, and it's just not clicking at this point in time. So, yes, bring on Kayshon Boutte.
All right. And Greg mentioned Jamar Chase, of course. We will find out on his appeal today as we do this live on Tuesday early afternoon. He's going to go through the appeals process. I do not think he's going to win that appeal. We have precedent, what happened earlier this season. When you spit on somebody, even at somebody, you are donezo for a game. I do not think Jamar Chase will be playing on Sunday, but we'll get to Jamar Chase later on in the week when we look at that Cincy game and whether or not Greg would, change the game plan, so to speak, on how he would defend T. Higgins, et cetera, et cetera. But while we're off, right, we had the Thursday night game, so we had to hang out on Sunday, had the opportunity to watch some other teams if you don't usually do that. Denver beat Kansas City. And interesting, I just got the question for you, Greg. When you look at the AFC right now, so Denver beat Kansas City, but Denver is, an interesting team because Bo Nix plays like crap for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden he'll play really well for a half a quarter, and they somehow win because their defense, just crushes quarterbacks. Indianapolis, of course, has been the team along with New England in the AFC, but they also have some questions, and I think, I don't know if you're afraid of them. Pittsburgh, Buffalo gave up, 100 points to Tampa. They escaped because Josh Allen had 6 freaking touchdowns. The Chargers, Justin Herbert gets hurt. They've got all sorts of offensive line issues going on. And then you got Jacksonville. Anybody in the AFC scare you right now, Greg?
No. I would, there's 2 teams pending. I mean, we'll get a lot of answers on a lot of our questions. Like, no matter what we talk about how real are the Patriots, have they been tested, like all that stuff. They have Buffalo and the Ravens back to back. Like, we'll know everything really that we need to know about this team. Their test level will be fine after those 2 games. And, I'm looking forward to that. That's the really good stuff in late in the season. I will tell you that at this point in time, the 2 teams that scare me somewhat are the Broncos and the Chiefs. And yeah, the Chiefs are scuffling. They're having some issues on offense. The defense isn't as good as it has been in the past. I just have way too much respect for Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Steve Spagnuolo to bury those guys. And I've seen them in past years, like last year, where at some point in time they similar to the 2018 Patriots after the back-to-back losses in December, how those Patriots morphed into more of a power running team and run-first team, and that basically carried them to a Super Bowl title behind a really good offensive line. I've seen the Chiefs last year sort of reinvented themselves as a power running team. Now, can they do it with an injured Isaiah Pacheco and the corpse of Kareem Hunt, who, like, I think I said it earlier in the maybe before the season started. I'm like, they can't do any better than Kareem Hunt. I mean, for crying out loud, like, it can't be that hard. But anyways, they could reinvent themselves. I've learned too much watching Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and all those guys. Every time you think they were out, I learned very early on, I forget what year it was, I'm like, I'm not doubting Tom Brady anymore. And I'm not doubting Patrick Mahomes until he's dead in the ground and there's a stake in his heart. But, like, I'm going to be scared to death if they come into Gillette in the first round. And the Broncos, with that defense, and, it's going to be very close between the Patriots and the Broncos to get the number 1 seed, because basically, well, they have 3 tough games. So the Broncos have 3 tough games. 2 are at home down the stretch. The Packers, the Jaguars, and the Chiefs. I think the Chargers are going away. Like you said, they just can't. They can't run the ball. Justin Herbert's getting his rear end kicked every week because they lost 2 all-pro tackles for the season. I just think, I'm not the biggest fan of Bo Nix, and probably when it comes down to it, I'd probably pick the Patriots in a head-to-head matchup because Drake May's better than Bo Nix. But that Broncos defense, if you're looking like what could stop Drake May, it would be that Broncos defense with that speed, that pass rush, those cornerbacks. They didn't even have Pat Surtain against the Chiefs. And, look at what they did to the Chiefs. And so, I'm scared most of those 2 teams. I am scared of the Colts as well. I do think they're a really well-rounded team and can beat you in different ways. There's still the Daniel Jones factor. All of these guys, it looks like, depending on Patrick Mahomes, we're going to have a situation where, the top 3 teams, have Drake May, Bo Nix, and Daniel Jones. And none of those guys are proven in the postseason, so who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would be, I would be concerned with Kansas City because I agree with a lot of what you said. I'm not ready to write those dudes off yet. I also, watch out for Baltimore because they've gotten healthier. You still got Lamar. I think they're going to win the AFC North, especially now with this Aaron Rodgers injury kind of mystery. He's not going to practice on Wednesday. He's got a fracture in his wrist, and Mike Tomlin was kind of, 50-50 on him playing this weekend, so keep an eye on that. But I think Baltimore, their defense, as they get healthier, is going to be better than it's been. So I do think Baltimore is a very, very interesting challenge, and we'll see. Like you said, you got Buffalo and Baltimore, without Milton Williams in those two games. So that's going to be even more of a challenge playing those two teams without your best defensive player. Indy, not sold on them. I think if you can find a way to slow down.
I guess Nick froze. I think he was going to say, if you can find a way to slow down Jonathan Taylor and make the team one-dimensional, then game on. It's to your advantage. I do think, while we wait for Nick to unfreeze, one thing, because we were doing our pre-show chat with Felger and Maz, and they put something, I think there was an ESPN power ranking or the Athletics, somebody, and they had the Patriots, I think it was, 5th in the league. But you know who has the Patriots lower than some of the power rankings that might get you mad? DVOA from Aaron Schatz over at FTN Fantasy. I'm a big fan of DVOA. I largely think it's pretty accurate, but like everything else, it's not 100% ever. DVOA, in terms of just the AFC, the Patriots rank 10th in the AFC in DVOA. They are 17th overall. Their offense is 10th. Their defense is 29th. Special teams is 20th. Their pass schedule is 32nd. Their future schedule is 29th. That is the easiest among those 10 AFC East contenders. Next easiest is Buffalo. The hardest schedule down the stretch, the two hardest schedules among the top 10 in the AFC is the Texans at number 5, and they played the 8th hardest schedule to this point, and the Chargers at 8th. It sounded like we have Nick back, I think.
I got some technological issues today, my man. I don't know what the hell's happening here, but here we are. I'm back.
So, yeah, you were just about – I finished your sentence where you say if you can find a way to limit Jonathan Taylor, and then
yes.
I just veered into I thought I'd shock people in saying that DVOA at this point has the Patriots 10th in the AFC, just to make people mad. But go on with your point.
No, you finished my sentence. I think if you can limit Jonathan Taylor, I do think there's some questions about Indy's defense in certain spots. I know they brought in Sauce Gardner. We'll see.
Yep.
But I look at the overall AFC, and there might be one or two teams, and those are kind of the steady veteran teams that I mentioned earlier that I would, kind of wonder if the Patriots can get through. But I don't think there's like this scary dominant team right now in the conference, records aside. So interesting year. All right, quickly, Jets game. Just have a few questions for you before we get you out of here and before my computer blows up. Your article on Drake Maye's comfort in this system, I thought was really good work. Not blowing smoke up the shorts, but what are you seeing from Drake Maye? And Thursday night, I say this, my grading system is it's in the infancy stages.
Yep.
But I only had Drake Maye for like a couple of like bad decisions in that football game. I thought his decision making was fantastic, and I thought he was really good. What'd you see?
Yeah, I thought the same thing, and I only had him for 3 minus plays. There was
I had him for 2, so I feel good about it now. I had him only for 2.
I had him for 8.5 and 3, which that got his rating up to. It was his highest rating since the Saints game. It was sort of on the same level as when he was on that 3-game heater. I thought it was outstanding. Only like 2 pressures this time, so that was really good. We talk about every time Drake has a weakness in a game or a part that needs improvement, he almost always gets better at it the next game. So that was really good to see in terms of the improvement on only incurring, 2 pressures in this game. The previous games, it's had gotten sort of out of whack, and he was really getting up there in the league in terms of that, even though he's way behind like It's amazing. You look at the PFF numbers for quarterback pressures. Jackson Dart's like 45% on the amount of pressure that's his fault. And then, there was the throw to Kyle Williams. It was a little underthrown. Of course, it was in a double coverage. I'd like to see him err on the side of, give him a chance to go get it or nobody gets it. But that was it. But I will say that the genesis of that story was watching Drake Maye and just like how comfortable he looked. And, talking to people around the team, and I started asking questions about, I'm like, why is he so comfortable? Why is he doing this? And, the answer I was getting is that, like, and we talk a lot about schemes and should you put Drake Maye, who should they hire as offensive coordinator? And you want this and that. There's a lot of schemes in this league where it's just like, they tell the quarterback just to run the play. And then you got to figure out, where the problems are after the snap. The beauty in the Josh McDaniels offense, if you can master it as a quarterback, is it gives you the ability at the line of scrimmage to solve a lot of your own problems, whether it's in the run game or the pass game, and you could pretty much know you're protected. So, like somebody told me, go back and watch the TV copy and listen to some of the calls at the line, and so that's what I did, and I really liked it because that gave me the ability. Also, there's a lot of close-ups on Drake's face, and you could just see him at the line. He's just like, it's no big thing, and he's telling people like, come in, you got 11. Like,
Yep.
There was one, probably the biggest play where this worked was so it was 3rd and 10, New England 28, 2:04 left. I want to say this is the third quarter. Drake Maye passed short left to Demario Douglas for 26 yards. So the Jets, a couple times, and on two of the plays that I used examples, the Jets end up bringing like 6 people, but the Patriots have it all picked up. There's nobody running free, nothing. And in this offense, everybody knows about the Mike identification, and that means like, the offensive line is responsible for the 4 down linemen plus that linebacker. If somebody else comes, it's on the quarterback. He knows that he's hot. He knows he has to do something. But Drake gets to the line of scrimmage. The Jets are like walking around, and, he identifies 44 at the mic. Then he yells diamond, diamond, which I don't know what that means. Then he said 11, which basically like meant for Hunter Henry to block 11, who's Jermaine Johnson on the edge. And I assume diamond means between the back and the center, they got to pick up, the pressure in the middle. There was one time where he called out, he's like, Mike and Will. Like he was basically telling they're both coming, and they both came. And so Drake Maye already his confidence, I think, is being gained from the fact that he knows he's protected, that he knows where his problems might be, if there are any problems, but really he's getting up there and he's like, I'm not going to have any problems. And so I think, that's the root of his confidence. I think he also has confidence in his teammates who are executing, on the whole at a pretty high level. And so just very impressive to watch.
All right. Before we get to guys who were good, guys who are not so good, the defense, watching the game over and going through the whole grading system, I think a lot of people looked at it and said, oh, well, the first drive was not good, obviously. Marte Mapu just completely lost Justin Fields on a 3rd down, and Fields ran for like 14, 15 yards. We did not see Marte Mapu the rest of the night on defense. I think Mike Vrabel saw enough on that one play and said, we're not going to have that adventure.
That's the second time that's happened this year.
Yeah. When he got picked on the crossing route, he got lost in traffic. I think Vrabel was like, all right, we're going to give him a shot, put him out there as the spy, and then he's completely lost, and Fields is running one way, and Mapu's on the other side of the field trying to catch up to him. A disaster. And Vrabel was like, I've seen enough. Marte, have a seat. But I thought, the Patriots defense was fortunate that they were playing Justin Fields and AD Mitchell, because I thought there were 2 or 3, and not just the ones that you saw on TV. There were a couple of openings there for the Jets pass offense. There were, I don't know if I call them blown coverages, but you did have a couple of problems. Yep. And fortunately, it didn't hurt the Patriots. And fortunately, Christian Gonzalez, who I thought had a down week, given the matchup especially, I didn't love what I saw, but they did enough, I guess, to win. What were your thoughts on the defense?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I had it marked down. I had sort of 5 unforced errors by the Jets that, really sort of determined this game. I think, a better quarterback. And of course, because in the season of everything's coming up Patriots, the Jets are making a quarterback change after they played the Patriots to Tyrod Taylor. I don't know if it would have made a difference. I don't know. I haven't seen Tyrod in a while. But 4 of those plays involved A.D. Mitchell, who they got in a trade.
Yeah.
Was that the Colts? Yeah, the Colts.
That was the Sauce Gardner deal. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would agree. I think, I'm a little bit concerned, little C, at the run defense the past couple weeks. I thought they were really leaky for the first time, I think, all season in this game. Of course, that has to do with the quarterback. And I didn't think that they were really well prepared for that, probably because it was a short week, but a lot of issues with edges, some issues with gaps. I didn't think Gonzalez or Carlton Davis were all that great, in this game. Of course, Woodson gave up another touchdown. But, yeah, I don't read too much into Thursday night games. I think we sort of talked about it. Just get out with a win, be relatively healthy. I'm not looking for the greatest performance in the world. Looked like, some of those guys on defense were sort of playing with their food a little bit, including the cornerbacks. So, but yeah, some things to monitor as we go forward.
All right, guys who were good.
So Drake Maye, outstanding in this game. I thought Travion Henderson, was good. He did have a good blitz pickup. He also allowed a hurry, so he was batting about 500. Mac Hollins, Demario Douglas, Stephon Diggs. I thought this was the best game Jared Wilson has had at a pro, and I would like to thank Jared Wilson for doing that right after I wrote about him changing his stance and the involvement of Mike Vrabel. So that was well timed. I did not think, this was like the 4th week. I didn't think it went particularly well in the previous 3 weeks, but this was good to see. On defense, Elijah Ponder, 2nd straight week that he's my highest rated edge player, mostly because he only plays like 16 snaps a game. Let's see. Christian Barmore played well. I did not think that Kyrus Tonga, both ways, had one of his better games. I would not put him on that list. Jack Gibbons was pretty good. Really good screen blow up that he had. Del Pettis, Money Del Pettis. I thought that 4th down play was really good. He also had a 3rd down, nice open field tackle earlier. But I liked on 4th down about how, it was basically the Jets were running a rub route, a 2-man route. And Del Pettis got up there and basically told Carlton Davis, like, you need to move up. So we're on different levels so we can deal. I think a rub route's coming so we can deal with it. And they executed it perfectly. So that was really good to see. So those are sort of my ups from this game.
Yeah, I'll put Corey Durden on the list. I thought he was good again in that game. I'll throw him out there for the defense. Offensively, I guess I'll throw Hunter Henry out there. I thought he had a pretty good game as well, especially without Austin Hooper. You're asking a lot. And I thought Hunter had a pretty good game. All right, guys that were not so good, Greg.
Jack Westover, not great in the blocking game. Kyle Williams, who we talked about earlier. This is probably going to be controversial. Will Campbell in the first half. I had him for basically, and his second half was flawless. I thought he was really good in the second half. His first half, I had him for 3 quarterback pressures, 2.5 stuffed runs. As opposed to probably like NGS and other things. If there's a penalty, like on his hold, I count that as a hurry, as a pressure. Because it is a 10-yard penalty. Let's see. Kaylavon Chason had a lot of issues on the edge in the run game. And I would say, Craig Woodson fell down, gave up the touchdown. Jalen Hawkins was more of an issue at safety, but not horrendous. I didn't have a ton of downs in this game. I'm really stretching.
I put Gonzalez down on that list.
Yeah.
I thought he was a disappointment. Harold Landry, I thought, did not play great. So that wasn't awesome to see. So I would put him out there as well, defensively. But overall, yeah, Kyle Williams, you already mentioned him, and Kyrie's Tonga, man, R.I.P. to the fullback Kyrie's Tonga, because he completely whiffed on a block in the red zone, and you could see it. I did kind of laugh though.
I laughed like he's on the Red Sox.
Like if you're watching it, and I don't know who was in front of him. It might have been Henry. I don't know who was, but he was like running behind a teammate. Like he blocked the same guy as his teammate while the edge came around and made the tackle. And I couldn't stop laughing Tonga's reaction, because as soon as it happened, he just threw his hands up and looked up at the sky like, damn it. Like,
yeah, he was not happy about missing.
No, he was not happy with that whatsoever. Yeah, so RIP. He was perfect. He was on a run. All right, speaking of run, Greg's got to run to Felger, Mass. We'll be back later this week to take a look at the Cincy Patriots matchup coming up on Sunday. Until then, we wish all of you well.